Babylonian Magic and Sorcery by Leonard W. King. We're in part D here, aren't we? This fact, the introduction. This fact is not sufficient, however, to explain the addition of their names to that of the suppliant, for the formula sometimes occurs in prayers in which no other mention is made of the suppliant's male and female entity, as the prayers in most cases have not been expressly copied for any individual. The actual names are not inserted in the formula. An interesting exception, however, occurs in K 223. The duplicate of number 2, which is cited as D number 2, is part of a large tablet containing prayers to Tashmitu, Ninib, and others. And K 223 is a small one inscribed with the prayer to Ninib, which has been extracted from the larger tablet for private use of Ashurbanipal, in place of the formula which occurs in number 2, 126. The duplicate D reads, I, thy servant, Ashurbanipal, the son of his entity, whose entity is Ashur, whose female entity is Ashuritu, etc. It is probably that no one but the Assyrian king could refer to Ashur as his entity and to Ashuritu as his female entity. This divine couple were the peculiar patrons of royalty, and although they looked after the people and land of Assyria as a whole, the king was the only individual selected for their special protection. The data, however, is insufficient to determine what entities the private Assyrians and Babylonians were privileged to regard as their patron entities. It is a possible solution of the question that might be attained from a study of the cylinder seals, on which the owner, after stating his own name and that of his father, frequently adds the name of the entity of whom he is the servant. Meanwhile, it may be permissible to speculate whether each class or trade has not its own patron entity, which was also regarded peculiarly as a god of each member of that class. The assumption that the alleged god mentioned on his cylinder seal is always the owner's patron deity is not quite certain. The amulets could be worn which were dedicated to other than the patron deities, is provided by the Assyrian amulet 95-4-8-1. On this little cylinder of clay, the owner, Shamash Kalania, addresses an incantation to the astral deity Kaksideh, in the course of which he states he is the son of his entity, with whom it is evident that the entity Kaksideh is not identified. Now, interestingly enough, you can replace some of the entities and remove some of the details and make some of these formulas still work. So, we know that each city had its local entity, who in prayers sometimes takes the place of the suppliant's patron entity, and it may be that a similar localization of entities existed with regard to the different trades and classes of society. Possibly, this suggestion may serve to explain, in some degree, the various pairs and groups of entities whose blessings are invoked by the senders of letters on behalf of the correspondents. It is probable that these entities were selected merely at the fancy of the writer, and it is easier to suppose that his choice was restricted either by law or custom to the entities who were connected with his own class or profession. A striking instance in point may be seen in the letters K 501, K 538, 83, 1, 18, 35, and 80, 7, 19. 23, written by Arad Nabu to the king. As the letters deal with religious matters, it may be assumed that Arad Nabu was a priest, and that the fact that he invokes such a long list of important entities would, on the above assumption, be an indication of his high rank and position. It seems kind of poor that, well, I'm in this position so I can worship this and you can't. It's like, Well, sometimes it takes an ignorant population to fall for it too. So K 2493 117 Anaku Palanu Apil Palana Shah Elu Aleshu Elu Marduk Elu Ishtar Eleshu. The introductory phrases on A3 118 35 reads as follows: Ana Shar Bilia Aradka Arad Elu Nabu Lu Shulmumu Ana Shar Bilia Ashur Ilu Sin Ilu Shamash Ilu Marduk Ilu Zarpa Netum Ilu Nabu Ilu Tashmetum Elu Eshtar Shah Alu Ninua Elu Ishtar Shah Alu Arba Ilu Ila Ne Anute Rabute Ra Mute Sharute Ka Shanate Ana Share Bilya Dubaletu Shebutu Letutu Ana Share Bilya Ru Shabetu Masar Shulme U Balate Inna Lebe Share Belea Lepkedu. K 501 has a similar introduction, while in K 538 and 8719 23, sin is the only entity omitted from that list. It may be argued against the theory that the same writer does not invariably invoke the same entities. Many explanations may be offered of this fact, it being conceivable that the letters in question were written at different periods of a man's career, or that certain higher positions included the privileges and rights of those beneath him, or that a man of higher rank in addressing a subordinate would not refer to his own entities but invoke those of the latter. However this may be, it is perhaps not impossible that in prayers and incantations, the naming of a suppliant's male and female entity was, to his contemporaries, equivalent to a declaration of his rank and position in the state. Following the formula in which the suppliant states his own name and those of his patron entities, we frequently find in prayers of the lifting of the hand a statement that the occasion in which the prayer is delivered is after an eclipse of the moon. The formula usually running is as follows: Inna lumun elu atale. Okay, let me try that again. Inna lumun elu atli elu sin sha inna arche pulane une pulane ishaknana lumun edate etate lemnite la dabate sa inna ekalia u mateya ibasha'a. And the ideogram ete in the sense of portent should be rendered by etu, but this rendering was not adopted in the transliteration, as I was unaware on what grounds Delitzsch based his rendering to, when in the earlier sheets of the transliteration have been printed off, the first part of the Handwerkbuch appeared, in which Etu takes the place of his former rendering of the ideogram. The tablets on which the formula occurs can only have been intended for the use of the king, for no private individual could address an entity in the evil of an eclipse of the moon, which in such and such a month, on such and such a day, has taken place, in the evil of the powers, of the portents, evil and not good, which are in my palace and my land. It is probable, however, that the only formula, and not the prayer or incantation itself, was composed for the eclipse, a great body of religious texts and incantations containing general petitions for deliverance from evil influences and magical powers would be quite suitable for use after such a calamity, and all that was needed in addition was a formula which could be inserted with the necessary detail of the month and the day on which the eclipse had taken place. Such a formula is the one cited above, and the fact is that it is found in some copies of the same prayer but omitted in others, proves that it could be added or removed at pleasure. Thus, in the copy of the prayer to Ninib, which was made from number 2, from the use of Ashurbanipal, the eclipse formula has been inserted between the 16th and 17th lines of the prayer, and the same insertion has been made in K 2836, the duplicate of number 27, which is cited as A. The prayer to Ba'u on number 6 does not contain the formula, neither does it occur in the duplicate D, which we find it. However, in the same prayer on number 7 and in the duplicate E, it occurs together with a statement of the suppliant's name, etc. It is absent from the last prayer of number 6, but it has been inserted in the duplicate F, where it is also preceded by the suppliant's name and those of his entity and female entity. The eclipse formula may, therefore, be regarded as forming no essential part of any prayer or incantation. In fact, some of the passages in which it occurs would be improved by its omission, as it interrupts the rhythm or meter of the lines on either side of it. A word must be said on the meter of which the prayers of the lifting of the hand are composed. It has long been known that the poetical compositions of the Babylonians were cast in general in rough form of verse and half-verse. Gunkel and Zimmern, however, were the first to trace in detail the existence of a regular meter, pointing out that each verse contains a definite number of accented symbols or rhythmic beats by which it was divided. Each division or foot of the verse consisted of single words, or of 2 or 3 short connected words, particles with words that follow them, words joined by the constructed state, etc. Zimmern further drew attention to the fact that the meter was frequently indicated by a group of signs on the tablet, and that by publishing a text it was consequently of great importance to reproduce the exact position and form of the characters in the plates. Therefore, I have endeavored to give as far as possible a facsimile of the original tablets. It will be seen, however, that only in a comparatively few instances is the meter indicated in this manner, and the evidence of duplicates goes to show that the different scribes attach different degrees of importance to the symmetrical arrangement of their lines. For instance, the carefully marked arrangement of number 1, 11, 1 through 8, containing the invocation of sin, is not reproduced in the duplicates K 3332 and SM 1382, nor is the form of the lines of number 18 retained by the duplicate K 6801. Looks like a, but yeah, I'm guessing, because if you raise it, it's going to be a 1. So we see how certain formulas or methods have been preserved Once a method is derived, it's like, oh, we're going to make this formula into this format. There's the Greeks had their modes of music and stuff like that too. If, however, we apply to the prayers and incantations the rules which Zimmern has added from the study of SP 265A, we find that great sections of the various tablets naturally fall into the 4-division meter. This regular meter is, however, frequently interrupted by a line of only 3 feet or divisions. For instance, 4/5 of the prayer to Ninib on number 2 consists of 4 feet, the remaining fifth of 3 feet. In many cases, moreover, the lines, although possessing a certain rhythm, cannot be regarded as composed in meter. The conclusion to which we are led, therefore, is that the prayers of the lifting of the hand, although occasionally running into regular meter, are not subject to the strict rules which apply to the poetry of the Babylonians. It is, perhaps, not improbable that this irregularity was intentional on the part of their composers. In the recital of a prayer or incantation, the irregular lines would form a striking contrast to foil those in meter, and the combination would serve to mark the suppliant's varying degrees of exaltation. The prayers of the lifting of the hand are frequently accompanied by directions for the performance of ceremonies and observances of certain rites. The paragraphs containing these directions are separated from the incantations by lines ruled on clay by the scribe, and they generally commence with the words Epush Anam. Do the following. Their length varies considerably, ranging from rubrics of 1 line to sections of 15 lines. The rubric of 1 line, which is characteristic of the prayers of the lifting of the hand, is generally found closing the following title of the prayer, from which is derived by a line in the clay. And we see these characters here. This is an old book, so we figure the same page numbers and stuff are, It will be seen that after the introductory phrase and rubric refers to 2 alternative rites in which are to be performed in connection with the recital of the prayer. On one occasion, we find that the rubric directly following the incantation, and is thereby expanded into 2 lines by additional injunction that the incantation is to be recited before Sib Zeana, in addition rendered necessary by the omission of the title. Now, my verse comments, I try to keep it, tweet-sized, right? But I make sure that I typically have a 4-lined sort of way of doing things. But I try to make sure that my message and effect is, that's more important than any length. The ceremonial sections of 2 lines are not uncommon. They are sometimes combined with the title, which they follow without a break, containing 2 or 3 directions to the effect that the incense is to be set before the entity or the female entity, a libation to be offered, and the incantation to be recited so many times. Or they may follow the title, by which they are divided by a division line. Or finally, they may know a longer section of ceremonies when they contain additional rites to be performed in connection with those that precede them. Sections of 3 lines, which are also common, generally follow the title, although they are sometimes found in combination with longer ceremonial sections. Not so common are the sections of 4 lines, which follow the title, and are not found in connection with other sections. The longer sections of 5, 6, 7, 10, 14, and 15 lines give directions for offerings in greater detail, while some cannot be classified, as in each case only the beginning has been preserved. By far the commonest injunction in these ceremonial sections is one to the effect that the recital of the incantation is to be accompanied by the burning of incense. The formula usually reads, "A censer of incense before the entity shalt thou set," though sometimes the kind of incense to be employed is specified, and at other times the wood is mentioned, from which, when lighted, the censers are to be kindled. Certain drink offerings and libations are also of common occurrence. It is from the longer sections, however, that we learn in greater detail the objects suitable for offering to an entity. Water, honey, and butter are frequently mentioned together in the list of offerings. directions occur for laying before the entity dates, garlic, corn, and grain. Kernels. While the various flowers, plants, and herbs play a conspicuous part both in the offerings and in the ritual. Offerings of various kinds of flesh are sometimes specified, while fragments of gold, lapis lazuli, alabaster, etc. may be presented by the suppliant. Pure water and oil are constantly mentioned in the ceremonial sections. The former might be simply offered in a vessel before the entity, or used for sprinkling a green bough in its presence. The latter might also form the subject of an offering, or be used for anointing, or be placed in an open vessel into which the various objects were thrown. Number 2, they're making the numbers kind of weird. That makes you, but they're going I2, so maybe that's their 11. For example, the seed of the mashtakal plant is ordered to be cast into oil, while in number 12, the priest is to place oil in a vessel of karindu wood, and then cast it into fragments of plaster, gold, the binu plant, the mashtakal plant, and other plants and herbs. And when the rite of casting things into oil is to be performed, the amount of oil to be used is generally mentioned, and sometimes the kind of oil to be employed. The rite of the knotted cord frequently accompanies the prayers of the lifting of the hand. Again, we can say something associated with the Yazidi and the tying of knots. And on one occasion, the rite is followed by a magical formula. In number 12, a tablet intended for the use of a sick man. When the priest loosens the knot, he is to utter the words La Uma Eranne, after which the sick man is to return to his house without looking backwards. The occasions on which the tablets might be used are sometimes specified in the ceremonial sections. Numbers 12 and 31, for instance, are to be used at night. Number 30, on a favorable day. Number 24, during certain phases of the moon, a certain phase of the moon. And number 21, number 24 is the phase of the moon. Number 21 at night, when the wind is in a certain quarter. The use of the majority of the tablets, however, appears to have been unrestricted. It will be seen, therefore, that the ceremonies which accompany the prayers of the lifting of the hand in general resemble those which occur on other classes of ceremonial and religious texts. They were not merely symbols, but were regarded as potent in themselves, and as the efficacy of an incantation depended on its correct recital, so their prayer resulted from a scrupulous performance of each detail. They are, with one exception, written after the prayer or incantation they accompany. But in most cases they describe rites which are to be performed before the recitation of the prayer. The entity, or female entity, must be propitiated by the necessary gifts before the suppliant is in a position to make his appeal. In the divine presence, the altar must be loaded with offerings and the censers lighted before the words of the incantation can take effect. Now, I myself aren't going to worship anything that needs food or drink, but it's important to consider the dedication of food and drink to what you worship.